Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. So while Russian generals draw arrows on maps and propagandists sketch victories on TV, the Kremlin has moved on to a more ambitious project, rewriting the worldview of entire continents. And since Europe now spots Russian disinformation almost on sight, and some shameless folks even farm them for content, Africa has become the Kremlin's new stage. Moscow approaches it with a mix of cynicism and creativity, manipulating old colonial wounds, pushing conspiracies through local influencers, and even producing animated films where Wagner mercenaries are recast as superhero squads. Bright colors, heroic music, and absolutely no mention that the same heroes leave mass graves behind everywhere they work. So according to the Truth Africa initiative, Russia systematically floods African media spaces with fake news, building an alternative universe where the West is a neo-colonizer and Russia is a liberator. The messaging is tailored to hit raw nerves. Moscow knows exactly which historical traumas to exploit. And while Western states invest in schools and clinics, Russia offers paramilitary groups and mining concessions wrapped in slogans about sovereignty. But propaganda travels faster and louder than hospitals, and that's the advantage the Kremlin is betting on. Now, none of this is accidental. Kremlin influence campaigns in Africa are structured, funded, and long-term. But even with all the noise, the cracks are showing. Russia's leverage is shrinking, its promises really materialize, and more African audiences are learning to separate information from manipulation, even when it comes rap and flashy animation and hero music. Moscow can draw itself as a savior in cartoons all it wants. A reality keeps leaking through the edges. Russian news channels have once again demonstrated that, for them, reality is more of a suggestion than a requirement. This time, the spotlight was on Poland and its decision to close its border with Belarus. On screen, Belarusian propagandist Kikin confidently explained that Poland was simply offended that it couldn't overthrow the political system in Belarus, and had stopped guarding its border on purpose and even provoked the migration crisis to boost election support.
Представляете, что в Польше творится? Там праздник натуральный. Но вы просто вдумайтесь, почему они устроили праздник по поводу чего? В 2021 году Польша по собственной инициативе из-за претензий к нам, обидевшись, что она не смогла свергнуть нашу политическую систему, не получилось у поляков. Извините нас, поляки, мы не дали вам. Вы хотели, а у вас ничего не вышло. Они полностью прекратили нормальную охрану границы с Беларусью. Потом спровоцировали, причем уже доказано, и писали об этом польские журналисты, специально под выборы, чтобы провести право и справедливость, искусственно спровоцировали миграционный кризис с беженцами, чтобы шовинистические настроения породить. Дальше сами по собственной инициативе закрыли эти два пропускных пункта. Им говорили в Подляском и Люблинском воеводстве: мы разоряемся, у нас, вы поймите, что для нас это мощнейший удар по экономике. Говорят: да бросьте вы, у нас товарооборот с Германией 100 миллиардов, а с Белоруссией меньше 3 миллиардов. Ничего, переживем. Не пережили.
Now, if any of that made any sense, congratulations. You may already qualify for a job at Russian state TV. Now, in the real world, the 2021 crisis on the Polish-Belarusian border wasn't Poland playing politics, but a coordinated hybrid operation by Minsk and Moscow. Thousands of migrants were flown in, pushed towards the EU border, and weaponized as leverage against Europe. Border closure came only after violent incidents, repeated attempts to storm crossings, and evidence of Belarusian security forces escorting migrants to the fence. All of this is well documented in EU, NATO, and UN reports, which apparently Kikin forgot to read while preparing a script. So once again, we get the classic Kremlin formula. Invent the facts, blame the neighbors, and narrate the chaos you created as someone else's plot. It's clumsy, it's loud, and it collapses the moment it meets actual evidence, but that's never been the point. The audience may not get the truth, but they always get the show. So the European Union has once again landed in the crosshairs of Kremlin propagandists, and this time, Moscow is dropping the usual denials. On state television, propagandists have essentially admitted that Russia is carrying out sabotage operations across Europe and signal that more are coming.
Мы, как давно уже пообещали, террористов обычно мочим в сортирах. Сортир может находиться в любом здании в Европе, в Америке, в Африке и в Австралии. То есть для того, чтобы замочить террористов в сортире, иногда приходится 12-этажные дома сносить. То есть европейцы, они реально живут в райском саду и думают, что они в домике. А потом, когда у них заводы пороховые взрываются, это потому, что кто-то сигарету закурил рядом неправильно. Когда у них мосты обрушаются, это потому, что износ металла. Ну, отлично, значит, считайте, что у вас весь металл в Европе износился. Ждите, считайте.
So what exactly do they promote? The language is deliberately vague. Subversive action against European structures, pressure on critical infrastructure, invisible operations that will be noticed too late. But the hints don't even need decoding anymore. Europe has already seen real cases. The sabotage operation uncovered in Poland, where 2 Ukrainian citizens and 1 Belarusian were arrested, all recruited and directed by Russian intelligence. It fits the same pattern we've been seeing for months. Small, deniable acts designed to cause disproportionate chaos, whether it's arson, vandalism, cyber attacks, or attempts to disrupt transport and energy facilities. For European security services, these public statements from Moscow aren't theatrical. They're confirmation of something already understood. Russia is shifting from covert sabotage to advertised sabotage, hoping that the threat alone will rattle societies. This marks a new phase in the Kremlin's information war, openly blending propaganda with psychological pressure. When Russian state media boasts about sabotage, it isn't just commentary, it's messaging. A signal to local pro-Russian networks, to recruited freelancers, and to anyone willing to act for money or ideology. It's also an attempt to flood the information space with fear, uncertainty, and suspicion so that no one knows what's real anymore. For Europe, responding means more than tracking individual incidents. It means strengthening coordination, improving cyber and counter-sabotage resilience, and preparing societies to spot manipulation before it spreads. Because Russia's goal is simple: make the information landscape so murky that even truth starts to feel like disinformation. And if Europe ignores these signals, these invisible operations that the Kremlin hints at may stop being hints, but turn into the kind of everyday destabilization that touches everyone. And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.